So Dante, is that a family name, or did your parents always want you to be in?
I got the mustache for it, and that's about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'll deliver the pizza, but for the rest of it, we got to get the real talent.
Yeah, absolutely. The dude, welcome in. We're both gamers. We're both real fans. We're also comedians here in the DFW area, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, is create kind of a comedy focused podcast. And I've had this weird stipulation where it's got to be in person, and I do ultimately have that goal to take the show and actually kind of get a studio for it where it's we could sit back, relax, talk games or what have you. But when you reached out and you're like, man, I'm really enjoying your content, like I want to talk video games, I was like, yeah, let's just do it. So I have to thank you immensely for getting the ball rolling on this this vision that I've had like all of 2023. And then I was like, I've got the tools. I do podcasting all the time. Why not talk to my fellow comedians and just kind of shoot the shit for what it's worth? So, dude, Dante, you perform in the DFW area. You've been doing comedy. Just do a little bit of introduction, plug some stuff that you got coming up, and we'll dive into the discussions.
Dante Pizzini, local comedian in the DFW area. Comedy stuff, you can go to my website, dantescomedy.com, and check that out there. I want to talk about video games. That's why I'm here, Brian.
Yeah.
I actually stalked your channel a little bit this morning. Star Citizen?
Yes, dude. It's so good,
That's
man.
Still going?
Oh, yeah.
I was in high school when they started development. See, 2011?
That's the same thing with
12?
GTA 6. A lot of people, because I put out my Is It Safe for Kids video, which like the Is It Safe for Kids shorts are both like for comedic effect, but then at the same time, it's so I laugh so much at the responses because it's usually a bunch of people coming in, who's this video even for? Why does this thing even exist? And it's like, it's existing for my own like entertainment for these kind of responses. But I put that out there, and obviously it went nuts. And so that's where somebody said, and I thought this was the truest statement. It's like, oh, I'll actually be an adult by the time this game releases, since they announced it's coming in 2025. So Star Citizen, I don't have a release date for you, but it has been it's wild, dude.
I think it's going to get pushed back.
Of course.
I can't believe they're still doing it. I remember when
they got the money.
Announced that project.
Yeah.
They announced that project, and there was pledges for like $5,000, $10,000,
They're
20
up
grand,
to,
and you'll get your own.
Are you ready for like how much money they've raised total?
It's gotta be over 100 million easily.
Oh, dude, it's like 630 million, and I'm probably estimating on a little bit on the higher end because the last I saw was like 628, 629, $1 million. And they actually published their financials. It is one of the most interesting projects. As somebody who has not followed it at all and was just only heard of like, oh, there's a game called Star Citizen and it's a scam, it will never be released. And this year I decided with the release of Starfield coming out that, I was like, oh, you know what? I'll go ahead and check this out. And I bought it, and I never actually made the time to go and play it because I was, I was busy. We were doing comedy shows and things like that. And then,
beefy game too,
dude. Oh yeah, Starfield is great. I actually really like. I like to hear your thoughts about it because it's one of the most interesting discussed video games of 2023. Like, as many people say, like it sucks. It sure trends a lot. Like, it's a lot of people are usually always talking about this game. But then, having played Starfield, I was looking and I was like, man, I really want some more space game. And I was like, oh, I already own Star Citizen. I'll go ahead and step into it. And it was such a crazy experience because my background when it comes to like the online MMO RPG was from Final Fantasy 11, which is this sandbox. Like the world's just going to kick your ass the whole time. And for some reason, you get addicted to that kind of beating. You're like, oh man, like, what did you do today? I leveled down.
Yeah.
Are you going to go back to the game?
Challenge of it, though. Yeah. There's a little more reward to it than just running around killing mobs, right?
Facts, dude.
Feels like you earn that level.
Yeah, you earn it, and then you want to hold on to it, and then there's like a real risk to losing it. So stepping into Star Citizen, I can immediately feel the critique of Starfield because the game, like, I enjoyed it. It's a Bethesda RPG. I was never into the Fallout series. It's just not aesthetically my kind of game. Like, I'm post-apocalyptic. I'll touch it, but it's not like, oh man, I can't wait to go survive the zombie apocalypse. I have nightmares about that all the time. So it's like, I don't need a game that.
Skyrim Oblivion from the Bethesda
Oh, I'm a more of an Oblivion guy over Skyrim.
Oblivion.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so the rumors of them talking about remaking Oblivion for the modern age.
Don't do to Oblivion what they did to Skyrim. Come on, we don't need
Who knows what they'll
the
do?
same game 10 times.
Well, I
If
mean,
you're gonna remaster it, like polish it up, add some new content.
it'd be
You know
cool.
what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I would personally really enjoy seeing kind of because Skyrim has been the dominating factor, month over month, year over year, just almost like GTA 5. Like it's like, well, why are people are still buying this game? And Todd Howard's like, well, like we'll keep making it.
They're still having fun playing it.
Yeah. And dude, and the mods and so much more. But when you step into the traversal within Star Citizen, and if you haven't seen the Star Citizen engine demo, it is something that is just like, I don't know how another star-based game, a kind of a space exploration game, comes out with and does not hit these same levels of features, because there is no loading screen in Star Citizen. You have one loading screen into the game, and then you can get in your ship, you can fly up to the planet, you can fly to anything, you can grab jump to another system, and like it literally is like, all right, I'm here. Oh, cool. And then there is like a real-time traversal, which kind of takes it back to the existence of that being kind of trying to have that immersion and that real, like, yeah, there's a cost to everything. If you die, there's a cost to that. It's not just in like you got to repair, but you have to travel. Like you maybe now it maybe took you 10 minutes to jump to that new system. It's going to take you 10 minutes to get back there, or you could upgrade your ship's gravs engine and you could get there maybe a little bit faster. So there's a bit of that, but it's still an alpha, and I think I'm really actually enjoying that I discovered it, and I discovered it today, as opposed to 10 years ago when it was first announced. Because I get the salt. Like I had a couple of the Star Citizen content creators react to my videos, and they're like, "Oh, but you don't understand the
history."
Like the full." And I was like, "I liked having the full history, but I can't emotionally go on that same journey because I just discovered this game, and it's looking like it is actually really starting to move forward." Because from a technical perspective, I'm like, I get it. Like they're creating technology that doesn't exist, and here they are. And it's like rocking and rolling, and it's truly impressive. Being that you heard about it before I did, because like the only thing I remember, the first thing I ever heard about Star Citizen was it's some kind of scam, and then it's like now I'm really kind of diving into the weeds, and I'm like, this is the thing I want to exist, because it doesn't make sense. There's no real true like market like you would have for a Call of Duty, or like this in and of itself, I think, is a good thing to exist, and I'm so impressed that so many people are willing to fund it. And I have, at the same time, I have no idea when it's coming out, but they will be releasing a single player story-driven game with Squadron 42 sometime probably in the next 24 months. And I think that in and of itself is going to be kind of a real milestone moment for that, because if you can marry that with a persistent universe, that after you play the single player game, you can be like, you know what, we're still in early access beta for the persistent universe, but you can go and play the story, and then you're like, I want to go live in that world. Then it ends up becoming an interesting on-ramp for that type of game.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to ask about. So I haven't checked in on Star Citizen in like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Like I said, when it first came out, there was, hey, if you want to get this game off the ground, you got to start with at least $1,000 if you want to donate to this project.
Yeah. It cost me, I think, 40 to 60 just to get off the ground. Yeah.
So now, the entry into the game is $40. And if you look at the current state of gaming between AAA indie developers, alpha, beta, forward, the game's out. We can play it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that Baldur's Gate did really not well, but they showed, hey, with enough time, love, and care, like we will release a full product,
And that was an interesting strategy too, because like I picked up Boulders Gate 3 in early access, played it originally a little bit, and then it kind of, I was like, all right, it's not ready yet. And then came, coming back pre-launch, already owning I already have the game. And I was like, all right, cool. Go on and continue on with it. And I'm very, very impressed by the work, especially because they brought in native controller support, which is really, for me, like I like to kick back, relax, and, play on, like a handheld.
Like you're playing a game.
Yeah, I like to feel like I'm playing a game and not at work. It's like, all right, I got keyboard and mouse, But and it's something that I was like, I'm very impressed. How much time have you spent with Baldur's Gate 3?
Oof, I don't even want to check. I think it's 2 campaigns, like over 150 hours probably.
Dude, that's insane. That's awesome.
It hooked me deep. It was a problem.
There's so much.
Sleep.
Did you get the dog? Like that's one of the things. That's,
of course.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like that, everybody can have these varying different experiences. I hope to return and continue my Baldur's Gate 3 campaign. But I'm also hoping that Larian picks up like the Neverwinter Nights license next, because they had Neverwinter's Nights 1 and 2. And I think 2 was the premier D&D based computer game, like in terms of maybe mindshare or if not reviews. And to see what they've done with Baldur's Gate 3, it'd be really cool to see them continue with Neverwinter Nights. Because I don't know if you saw the movie Honor Among Thieves, like that was great. Like all of these great D&D properties seem to be like excelling really well, and I think that's fun. The inner nerd in me is just like, all right, more of this, because I missed out on all the D&D stuff growing up, because that was during like the Satanic Panic. You ever hear about that?
Oh yeah.
So I was like, oh no, your kids are gonna become devil worshippers playing D&D. So I wasn't allowed to play. So I've never actually sat down and played the tabletop version of D&D. So it's been a learning experience for me, stepping into the universe. But it's really enjoyable. It's a well thought out, well fleshed out kind of world. It feels, very believable, which is I actually really appreciate, which is nice, which is really nice.
The immersion is incredible, and just the variability, like you were saying, like 10 people can sit down and play the game and describe an incredibly different game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But with Star Citizen, what is that when you're buying that? Do you just get a ship and entering the world, or? Yeah,
you get like a starter pack ship. I believe it comes with lifetime insurance, which the way I guess insurance in my mind works, it's kind of like your subscription, that it's like as if you crash your ship, like you can claim it, things like that. So hey,
pay to fix it.
I don't have to pay to fix it. No pay to win there. But so that's where.
Is there like a narrative, or is it just like, hey, here's your ship?
This is where my ignorance, and so any who's like a Star Citizen fan is, like I'm not speaking from a level of expertise. I've only been playing for like a month and a half, and the narrative that I find is that exists from YouTubers. So I've been getting into Space Tomatoes videos, who is a Star Citizen content creator, and so he's posted some lore videos. So from that perspective, like it does feel like a lived and breathed in world. From my personal experience stepping into it, I pick up some missions. They have some story and narrative to those missions themselves, and I either am successful or I die because I suck. And that's the thing I like. I like it when a game tells me to get good. Same thing with Elden Ring. Like I've only played a little bit of Elden Ring, and I'm looking forward again. Like I always run into time constraints with anything, but I like it when a game is like, yeah, okay, you need to learn these systems, as opposed to like, okay, I just press this button and won. Yeah, there's a deep system behind it. But if the game doesn't push you into those uncomfortable areas to kind of figure out what you did wrong or what you could do better, then, you're going to just kind of, face roll on it and then feel like, you're, I guess, a god among men of gamers. I'm the best gamer in the world. It's like, dude, Hello Kitty Island Adventure, does not have a deep learning curve, but like, oh, but I got those achievement points.
Screw you guys, I wish I was playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure. But I love the other aspect of that too, with those like FromSoft titles, or like Baldur's Gate is another good example. The challenge of it, you either got to get good or get really clever and figure out how to be tricky and like get around the game mechanics. Like Elden Ring, you do the double like stone shield, you can't die. It's amazing. Like you walk, you can't run, but you can't die. It's amazing.
There you go. There you go. Pro
So
tip.
Baldur's Gate 3, did you see the Barrelmancy class video?
No, I have not seen that one yet.
So a guy just collects all the explosive barrels he can find in the game and
yeah?
just creates a line throughout like one of the first starting areas and just lights it and everything. Dies in one shot, and he's like, that's how you beat tactician mode.
That's awesome, man. What else have you been following? What else have you been playing right now?
Lately, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3 hardcore, actually. And that's, how do you feel about hardcore mode in games? Because I'm really upset at it right now.
I think I love it when games give players the options, especially to kind of create their own fun. And then it's not a requirement. You know, like one of the things is like, would I step into a hardcore mode? I think yes. I think if I was answering honestly, it's like yes, but there's got to be some kind of, you know, time availability, because the risk in and of itself is like, oh, if I was just going to play, you know, through the game on my, you know, my first time on hardcore, well, I might not ever, you know, reach the end game or the story, and you know, I might like, oh, I don't want to start all the way from start, you know, day one again. But I love that it exists because I like various different, especially in terms of content. Like when you think of speedrunning and you think of like, you know, yeah, if I die, my character's dead. It does create a lot of great viral moments. Like if you start to think about it in terms of also as a content creator, you know, it's like, oh man, this is an experience that I've had that is, you know, like that has an emotional kind of response, because I've seen some of those go around where it's like, you know, guy gets up to go to the restroom, comes back, and he's dead after 40 hours into his hardcore run. And it's like, well, better luck next time, dude. Get it started. I kind of do think in terms of hardcore, that is one of the elements that I feel is missing within the MMO landscape, where death ends up having a consequence. Some of them have tried
return to form.
Some of them have tried.
WoW doing like a classic hardcore.
Yes, they are now? Exactly, and that's that's where it's like, again, it's not going to be something that is like mass market appeal. Like every gamer is going to like, okay, here we go, but that's going to have some value to players, and if there's enough demand there, like I think it makes a lot of sense for developers to support that, and I for one would love to see that. I think that ends up. Again, like a game doesn't need to appeal to everybody, but sometimes it's like, oh, if you go, you know, a little bit further, you can actually offer something that, you know, that people will get connected into. And I think difficulty is one way that people get attached to video games.
I definitely felt that sentiment. Then I started playing hardcore, and I'm pissed because now I can't go back to normal. Like,
how so? Talk to that.
I had 2 characters die, and I'm like, this is dumb. I'm just wasting time. Like all my shit's gone. So I start up normal mode, and I'm like, there's no consequence. I just walk into a mob of people and die, and start like. Now I'm like itching for hardcore, and it's like, damn it, like don't die. You're gonna lose all your shit, and you're gonna get mad, and you're just gonna make a new character.
What do you think about it? Is that it has that addictive element? Because that's something like I talked about with Final Fantasy 11, where when you die, you could level down, and so there was a real cost and a cost that you're like, it wasn't that. You know, hey, that level down, I'm going to get it, you know, back in the next 2 minutes. It's like, man, I got to form a party. It could take me an hour or 2 hours to make up for that loss. Why my hubris, man?
I think it's a little bit of that, I want to pull the slot machine, see if I win big.
Oh, yeah? But, what do you win big on a hardcore mode?
Risk mentality. Nothing. I was looking at a forum last night. I was like, does Diablo 3 hardcore mode, like any armor or like maybe bonus XP? Nothing. Just permadeath. That's it.
Nice.
But now, like going back to normal, the effect of hardcore is kicked in. It's like there's no consequence here. Now I don't really care. So I got to go back to the hardcore mode to actually like want to improve and want to get better and feel that risk again. You know what I mean?
I hear what you mean.
But it's funny because like hardcore Call of Duty, I think sucks. You know?
I haven't played the hardcore Call of Duty. Like, what does that look like?
So that's like no mini map. One shot kills you instead of like a couple. So it's more like realistic. You can kill your teammates.
Way better.
It's fun until there's like people running around with like the one shotguns, and like you just fall over and die from someone across the map, and you got no radar, so you can't tell where it came from. then your teammates are assholes and throwing grenades and killing you. Yeah, hardcore Call of Duty's not fun.
Well, maybe that's just also the community around the Call of Duty game. How do
Yeah.
you feel about with Microsoft picking up Activision this year? Like, were you following that at all throughout the year, and where do you fall on whether this is a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, I think Microsoft is making a lot of moves to become more of a juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly have shoes that they can take place in. Blizzard's kind of been on the shit list for a lot of people. Activision's kind of been on the shit list. Maybe going to Microsoft will do better. 343, Bungie, like no one's really stellar right now, I guess, besides Larian, but that'll be 5 more months of hype before that starts to die down.
Mm-hmm.
They gotta make Game Pass more comparable to Sony's. Like Game Pass is cool; they get day one releases, but what did they get this year? Starfield.
Starfield. They got Hi-Fi Rush. They got Forza Motorsport.
Hi-Fi Rush was a sleeper hit. No one thought that was going to be as good as it was.
Dude,
so
that's such a fun game, and I liked how it was just kind of shadow dropped. Like when it's like, oh, by the way, and you can play it today. Because I tend to find that, at least in my experience, in my opinion, that when you give a game now too much lead time, it ends up becoming a game where the content creation and YouTuber side of things ends up becoming hyper negative already against it. Like, oh, this game's going to suck. They said this one thing, and then people don't end up trying out the game. Where with Hi-Fi Rush, it's like, hey, game's out. Everybody can go and download it. You don't need to wait for some review that could potentially, like, I don't know whether it could taint your, experience with the game or not. Like, that's always something I do wonder, like how much of content creation, social media impacts our general view. Like, oh, I'm gonna echo this thought, but comes out super fun, real exciting, and I hope Microsoft does more of that. Where I think they said that they're going to try to target like 4 like AAA release games a year. So you think about 1 a quarter, and then between that, like you could have some of the more like, because I would classify it in that kind of AA category. It doesn't need to be a full price 60-hour game. It doesn't need to do all these insane things. It just needs to be a fun game, and allowing those things to kind of fill in the gaps and also just kind of spread out the year a little bit, which would be fun. But how do you feel about it?
Well, I think what Microsoft's just not doing as well as Sony is the hits, the classics. Sony's got, the Ratchet and Clank, the Sly Cooper, the Jack and Dexter, a whole bunch of other PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 titles. There's a ton of like classic original Xbox hits that just aren't on Game Pass that could be.
Yeah. That'd be definitely a good step. But on that note though, what franchises would you like to see either Microsoft bring into Game Pass that are missing, or would remaster? For me, like as an example, is I have no idea why we haven't seen a Banjo-Kazooie from Microsoft. It's a great, in my way, it could be a great fun 3D platformer that is making up the gap that Mario doesn't, play on the Xbox. So it's like, like you have this, you have the old ones, I have the old ones, and it's like they're fun games, and I would love to see kind of a modern take on it. What do you think?
They definitely could. Like they just redid Crash. Again, Ratchet and Clank kind of returning to form. Battletoads. Like there's still a demand for the classic kind of platformer. Not everything has to be online or a battle pass, right?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. I've been a PlayStation guy for a while. Original Xbox. They finally did Psychonauts 2, and that's actually on everything. So glad for that. I would love to see a 3. Did you ever play the Predator game, Concrete Jungle?
No, I never. Who was that? Who made that one?
I could not. It was a horrible game, but I remember it on the original Xbox. It was just clunky, but you got the Predator vision and like the plasma caster, and I would love to see them just make like a solid third person over the shoulder, like Predator experience, like narrative.
Have you played like Dead by Daylight or anything like that?
No, I hate those one life run around game. Those stress me out so much.
Yeah, I'm not really big into like survival horror. Like the jump scares get me, and but I was like, I see the appeal, and also I see like the what streaming and streaming culture kind of brings into these kind of games, why certain games have just really exploded because of their streamability, reactability, and which is like that. Those are perfect games for that. So, but I think they had like I think they had like, they've been adding in like these movie monster villains and things like that. And I was like, I can't remember if they had Predator, but I was like, oh, maybe that's how those IPs end up getting licensed going forward. For those kind of isometric, asynchronous games where you got 1 versus 5 or something like that, which is interesting because I think there was it's a game and it failed, like Evolve. Like I remember so much hype around Evolve.
Don't get me started. It was supposed to be so good, and then they released what they made, and it was not.
Yeah, I remember all the coverage of it. Like everything was so positive, and that's not one that I was like, okay, I'll wait and see. I played like they had some kind of demo, and I was like, all right, I was like, I don't see the appeal. Like everybody wants to play the monster, and
being the monster was fun.
Yeah,
everything else was not. Like that was the biggest issue.
Yeah. So if they had and I was like, yeah, when it comes down to it, it's like, I'd rather have made my own character. Like that's one of the things, like, you remember the Left 4 Dead series? Mm-hmm. Like so much fun. And it was like, I was hoping it was going to be something like, have that kind of level of, that feeling, but it didn't end up delivering in the end. And recently there was something that came out and, kind of that was trying to revive that. It was called something different, but I can't recall.
Back 4 Blood.
Back 4 Blood, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't played that one yet, but I heard it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like for the horde shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that as well, and I was like, that's interesting. So yeah, I think if they did Banjo-Kazooie, that'd be really great. What other things do you want to see Microsoft do, especially now that they got Activision and Blizzard under their belt?
I mean, I'm always asking for more single player games, more, if I buy a game for $60 and I get 40 hours out of it, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get a value in your time like that in a lot of other forms of entertainment. Like, it's okay to not do seasons and battle passes and, hey, you got to be playing our game in a year. It's like, no, I'll just play it for a month. That's fine. Like, just make good games. Can we stop with these buggy releases and day one launches having patches?
Dude, yeah. I think that would be, that's the ideal, but that's where I'm like,
tough.
Don't pre-order games, guys. Like everybody out there is like, I pre-ordered. It's like, guys, there's no scarcity. Like the game can come out, you can look at a review and you can have that game and you can play that game within an hour. If, and that's assuming you're not streaming the game where like you could actually play, like, yeah, I'm going to play it on the cloud before I decide whether I even want to install this or not, so you have a lot more flexibility, and that's only going to become more important going forward. The thing that's interesting is like you bring up the cost per value of fun. I was just thinking about this. I was trying to, we were trying to budget to take the kids to maybe see a movie this weekend. And it was like starting price, before snacks and everything. The lowest we could find was like $35. It was like for the kids, like $5, for me $6 at the cheaper theater. At the more expensive theater, it was like $9, $10 for a matinee for the kids. And it's like me and the kids, like that one would be $60. So you're talking about $60 for 40 hours of fun. Here I am. I'm like, should I spend $60 to go take kids to the movie for 2 hours? And that's not counting popcorn. That's not counting these things. And so, yeah, I do find the value proposition video games offer is really quite compelling. That's why I don't know if you ever played or heard of New World. Like I really enjoy New World. It's by Amazon. They come out. It's $40 for the base game. They now have an expansion, so it's like technically I think 60, but it's no subscription.
They do Lost Ark as well, right?
They do Lost Ark, and
Amazon making games? What the hell is going on?
Dude, it's they're like, when Phil Spencer sits down to say like we're more or less watching what Amazon and Google are doing, and then Google just comes in, shits the bed, and just bounces out. It's like, all right, not Google, but Amazon. Amazon's also picked up the Tomb Raider license. So they're going to be publishing and they're making the next Tomb Raider game. They also have the Lord of the Rings license, and they're making a Lord of the Rings MMORPG based off of the same engine as New World. And so they're really pouring a lot of investment into New World right now. But from a cost per hour of joy, I think I'm well over 1,000 hours with that game, and the only entry fee is like $40. So I've tossed them some more money because I was like, yeah, this is a fun game, I like it, But and they got more stuff coming this year, and I was just like, yeah, there's Fortnite is another example. Like some of these free to play games really do like draw in a huge amount of players, and they do, and that's where I think we've seen that psychology of we'll fix it after, we'll just keep making it. We just want to release that MVP, that minimal viable product to people, and we're not going to charge them up front for it, but we're going to make that money up through all the seasonal content. I think there's a general fatigue with that. There's been a fatigue within certain gamers, but I think industry wide, when we look at 2023, especially all these just massive like RPGs, I mean, it was a massive year for games all over. But we're talking,
I got spoiled with single player games.
Dude, Harry Potter kicking off this year, Jedi Survivor, Final Fantasy 16, Diablo 4, even though that's also can be multiplayer. Then you go into Starfield, you go into Spider-Man 2 to wrap up the year, Super Mario Wonder. Like when I was sitting here, like I've bought and played a little bit of so many games. I've only finished like a handful, and then I'm like, yeah. Why haven't I been playing this service-based game that I normally spend most of my time into? And it's like, because every time I finished or was ready to step away from this epic single-player game, there was another one right there, ready to go. And excited, and that also sounded fun, and it turns out was incredible. Boulders Gate 3, like holy crap! Like I was just like,
it was a good year for single player games. I shouldn't be complaining too much. They definitely knocked it out of the park in 2023.
Well, I think that's also added extra competition to things like World of Warcraft and these games that require they want you to constantly be checking in. You're like, I don't need to check in right now. And then
Guild Wars 2 also had a big expansion.
Guild Wars 2, yeah, and after like such a hiatus that they came out with the Dragon expansion, they came out with a new one. I haven't even had time to play the Dragon expansion. I purchased it because I wanted to support them, because I was like, yes, and then I was excited about the Steam release of Guild Wars 2, but then they don't connect the accounts. So if I was to buy and play the Steam version, there's no, but it's still the same servers. It's just they don't connect my accounts, and I was like, that's the one miss they made, because I was like, oh, I'll purchase this on Steam. This will make it easy for me. I'll really enjoy that aspect, because I like how Steam handles like launching of games, just things like that. But then I was like, oh, I have to start over? No, I guess I won't pick it up on Steam. And then I haven't gone to actually play it. So one of these days, I'll go play some more Guild Wars 2, because every game I always say like, man, it'd be really cool they brought in this feature from Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 really does this well, and then I'm like, why am I not playing Guild Wars 2? It's so fun.
Well, there's just so much. Same thing. I still haven't gotten through the third expansion.
Yeah.
The Jade Isle or whatever.
Oh, I thought that was the fire. See, no, it's the
fire is 2.
Thorn, fire, and then the dragon.
Dragon expansion. Yeah.
Which they added fishing, which I was like, cool, I'm going to check it out. And I haven't.
So it's on the list. But I'm definitely going to get my ass kicked in some hardcore Diablo before I go over there.
I got to get my kids aged up a little bit so they can join me in Enza, because like when it comes down to game time right now, it's more like I'm going to go play some Super Mario Wonder. We're going to go play some Mario Kart.
Splatoon?
We haven't. That's actually what I'm thinking about picking up this Christmas, just because
Splatoon be a good one.
Yeah, I thought that's what I was thinking in terms of like getting them used to that kind of shooting,
a little more competitive,
a little bit competitive aspect. We've done Smash Brothers, which is a blast, and I really enjoy. Do you remember? Did you get to play Multiverses at all?
Oh no, I watched some gameplay footage. That was one where like Shaggy was the strongest character, right?
Oh, dude, Shaggy and Batman. And the thing about it though is like the net code on that game was so good. Playing online felt so good.
Really?
But that's where it's like, man, I wish they would take that net code and put that into Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Playing Smash Brothers online is like, I don't know how people do it. I don't even know if they do. I tried it once or twice, and then I was like, nope.
Still using Slippy and Dolphin, I think. Or no, that's for Melee. That's not the new Smash.
But yeah, and then Nintendo being, Nintendo just, I'm a huge Nintendo fanboy. Like that's where it's like I remember when PlayStation originally came out, I was like, "Oh man, PlayStation sucks, Nintendo." And then Xbox came out, and I was like, "What are y'all talking about? Oh, y'all have Halo? What's that, man? I'm playing Luigi's Mansion, baby." Like I was such a fanboy.
Oh yeah,
and
Luigi's Mansion was amazing.
It still is, but like when you think about like a touchstone moment for gamers, like it wasn't really until Halo 2 that I started playing the Halo series. And
Oh yeah.
and I was like, oh wow, this is a lot of fun. I really like this. And because like I was like, yeah, I wasn't playing Halo. We were off playing, Rogue Squadron. I was
Oh yeah, on the
like,
GameCube.
yeah, man, GameCube, dude, with the purple with a
Oh,
handle. It's like, hey, pick it up and take it places. And it's like, why?
so I was actually hanging out with some buddies the other weekend, and we all sat down. We're playing Mario Wonder, and that's the first time I've really like messed with a Switch.
Yeah.
Nintendo's ability to just compact and really make a tight device that runs damn well is impressive.
Well, the
Like
fact
the
is, we're still
Switch,
waiting for Switch 2, and it's like,
it's coming, I'm
yeah.
sure.
I'm hearing rumors for next year, which sounds pretty cool.
Just don't do another Wii U or whatever
Yes.
that was.
Dude, that was such a miss, and you felt it pretty immediately. Like it's like, I never actually liked the name Wii, and then they were like, okay, we're gonna keep that branding, and so it does sound like an accessory.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's the Wii U. It's like because they had the boards. That's when they were like, we're just doing all this crazy stuff, and then it just completely cratered. And everybody's like, oh yeah, it's just gonna take this one game, and everyone's gonna come get it. It's like, no, people aren't interested. People don't even know what it is, and what they want was what the Switch was. What they want is that I want a console that I can take on the go, but then I can also have the same games on the TV. And I do wonder what they're gonna do next, because one of the things like we were talking about Game of the Year, and I was like, I haven't played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom yet, and the reason is that I was like, I don't want to play it at 20 frames a second on my Switch. I want to wait to the Switch 2 and be able to experience that game at 60 frames per second, because that's what people hacked it.
You just nailed it.
Yeah. People were hacking the Steam Deck to run Zelda at 60 frames, and I was like, yeah, it literally is a hardware bottleneck, and I'm very much looking forward to that to see. And then Mario has been just phenomenal. Mario Wonder has been like such a freaking cherry on top of this year of video games. And something that I enjoy. So as my kids get older, like that's where it's like start aging them into some more of these games like Guild Wars or things like that. Like even with Star Citizen, like getting the kids to like, yeah, we're going to go man this spaceship together and we're going to go on these missions.
Oh, that's going to be so sick.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be great. And I was talking with a friend. I was like, I'm not, I don't have unlimited funds, but I was like, one of the things that I do feel would be really cool if at some point in the next 10 years, that if we get a new house, that I could have like a dedicated game room where it's like me and we get kids and other PCs and everything set up. So that way, like, cause like gaming in here
Looking
would be
like a LAN party.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have our own little area for our own little LAN, family LAN party where we're all playing and stuff like that. It's like that's the dream. That's what I'm chasing after. And one day we'll see if that happens. I know you were one to talk about Bungie, especially as it relates to their recent struggles. And I don't know if you've seen the news today, but apparently IGN's reporting that they're hearing that the teams they're demoralized, they're scared for their jobs. It sounds like Sony might be coming in and taking over the company where they thought they were going to have anonymity. Now it does not seem like that is a future. So that's something where it's like, this has just been kind of a weird year for Bungie overall. Like, have you ever played the Destiny? I'm assuming you played Destiny because you reached out specifically. You're like, let's talk about this topic. And I was like, absolutely. Because I could talk about it all day long. But like, what's your Destiny relationship? Like, what's your history of that game?
So I was definitely like day one Destiny diehard, the original.
Yes.
Hated everything.
What was your favorite gun? What was your favorite gun? Like, I had a favorite gun in Destiny 1.
Destiny 1?
Yeah.
Ooh, definitely the Vex Mythoclast. For like the 1 week after the raid initially dropped, it was broken.
Yeah.
You could just jump into the Crucible and hold the trigger and win. It was amazing.
For me, Red Death, dude. I love that gun. I was like, and they've kind of brought it to a degree, like a kind of a variant of it into Destiny 2, but yes. Anyway,
that was the assault rifle with the knife on the front.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, healed you as you got kills.
I think for not meme weapons, I love the Eye Glass, the scout rifle, again, from the Volta Glass raid.
Yeah, such a good game. Destiny 1, man, that was such a good time.
But Destiny has no right to be as good as it is, because since it came out, it has just been a dumpster fire of like Are we a competitive online game? Do we have a story? Who are these guys? So this looks cool. Let's throw it in there. We'll narratively explain it later. Like, it's just been such a mishmash. And then when Destiny 2 came out, they really started leaning more into the platinum and the currency. And I think moving to a free to play model is really what killed it. Well, the free to play model was kind of the start of its death, but
It's not really
they
free to
really
play. It's like free to taste. And it's because like
yeah. Now
everything
that they got 5 expansions, you got to pay for. But I don't know. It kind of goes back to what we were saying about live service games. It's a double-edged sword of like, hey, we can get this out, we'll fix it later, but also we're expecting new updates, new changes every week. I think they would have done a lot better if it was more like a monthly schedule and they weren't so 100% go all the time. And we need to make sure that we have ways to pay for this. These changes we're making, these people we're paying to be monitoring the game, the servers, all that.
Yeah, I agree. Sense? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think that all ties back also into that fatigue. That for me, I would say my actual biggest issue with Destiny 2 as it exists today is first and foremost the FOMO. And so you have the battle pass.
Play on that.
And for those who are watching this and we're like, "What's FOMO?" It's fear of missing out. And
Gambit was horrible with that,
dude. Well, and then like they've also not invested in PvP. So I recently started, I returned to Halo Infinite, and the season 4 and season 5 have been incredible. In fact, they just have either a mid-season update that drops today or tomorrow that I think is actually including their firefight mode. So they're firing on all cylinders with that game. And so from again, I actually, the only reason I would do the PvE stuff, the biggest motivator for doing Destiny 2 story, PvE missions, etc., was that they were taking them away. And that in and of itself is also wild, that people have spent money and then, nope, you bought that and now it no longer exists in the game. And I do wonder if there was some kind of Activision law or something that as they transition, that instead of slapping a 3 on it, and going forward, that they're like, we'll just keep everybody in this environment. So I think there's been some business decisions that have plagued them where today they're like, man, I wish we would have made this different decision, 4 years ago, because that would have been, given us a little bit of healthier approach. But the when it came down to it, the FOMO pushes me out. It's actually the same thing. New World has brought in that same kind of FOMO where you get a battle pass, and then if you don't complete it, it just goes away, and then there's a new battle pass. Halo, you buy the battle pass, you keep the battle pass. So I have past battle passes that as I, cap out on a specific battle pass, I can go back,
just switch to another one.
I can equip any of the past ones and start working on those rewards.
Now, can you go back and look at prior passes and be like, oh, damn, season 2 looks dope. Here's
purchase it. Exactly.
Bucks,
exactly.
Chief Bucks. I don't know what they call them.
Yes, you can. Whatever the hell they're called. But yes, you can do
Chief
that.
Bucks.
Meaning you don't have to either that FOMO isn't present. So if you want to go and you want to I'm going to grind on that reward track. All right, here's the money. And if you don't want to grind on that reward track, then you get to keep the money. But if you spend the money, you're not now under some kind of time frame gone. That's also the thing is I would always get these weird cravings for Destiny right before the new season. And so then because I know that there's no reason to grind on this battle pass because it's going to go away in 2 weeks, I just wouldn't go play the game. And it's okay, well, they're missing out, I think, on that. And I think them infusing that FOMO into the game, I think, needs to change. And my hope for the battle pass is that games like Halo set a new standard for well, why does your battle pass expire? I paid for that. Why don't I have access to it? Because, the thing that is always is that I have I dream that I have all this time to game, but a kid gets sick or, I got to work extra hours at work this month because, in our case, Maddie needed to have some kind of test that was not covered by insurance. And that was $1,800. So, it's well, I guess I'm going to
busy.
I guess I'm going to get back to that grind, and so that way we can afford being parents. And so, oh, I have ambitions to be oh man, yeah, I'm going to play. It's going to be fun. And then reality hits and it's I worked 12 hours today. I think I'm just gonna crawl into bed, you know. And it's like, and so, and then but that artificial gun, like you got to grind, or you're missing out on this value, or you know, you're wasting money. Like I don't need it in my life, and so I just kind of like, well, I'm just not gonna play you right now until you change. And I think I finally broken my Destiny addiction, especially with the latest expansion, because I hated it. I hated everything about it. I was like, this, I don't. Like, and coming off the Witch Queen, I was hyped, dude. I was like, I thought the Witch Queen was great. And then stepping into this, I was like, this sucks. This feels like, hey, we wrote this thing. Oh, guys, by the way, we need to wrap this up. And then all of a sudden, this guy appears, and there's this thing, a MacGuffin that we need to get that has always existed but we can never see it because I don't know. I was just like, it literally pulled me out of that universe like that.
So I fell off with Riven. Spoiler warning, if you haven't played by this point, Cade 6 dies.
Yeah.
Uldrick. Was that which
that was
queen?
Forspoken.
That was Forspoken.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, Forsaken. Forspoken is another game.
yeah.
But yes, I love that, dude. But I love that.
I fell off there. I think you made a really good point of the FOMO, and it reminds me, I don't think Destiny has ever handled keeping their shit relevant well.
Yeah.
Like as far as like the guns, the armor you get when the game first came out. Okay, well now we got the Dark Below expansion. All that armor sucks. You got to get the new light stuff. Then they started to get a little better with like the light fusions, but again with the FOMO, like everything came out that was new and everything you had just felt irrelevant.
Yeah.
That was a cycle that got really annoying, I think, with Destiny.
Now, I made a video, and then I think this was the direct thing you wanted to kind of talk about, is that I talk about how kind of they went woke, because when you go look at their various different kind of marketing and appeals, they have really leaned into kind of that side of the culture war. And while I was like, well, I think when you brought it up, I was like, it's an interesting topic because we can talk about it. But like, it isn't that is the one key thing. But the issue that I see is that when good game armor breaks down, like, you know, and I've kind of said the same thing with WoW, like when all of a sudden, like all the sexual accusations around Blizzard came out, was when WoW was in its weakest state ever. Because when the good game armor that protects the game from anybody who I don't care what they're doing as long as the game's good, all of a sudden when that game isn't good, any issue that people have had with them as a culture, a company, or what have you, starts to manifest. And it's just like, yeah, a lot of people are frustrated by this thing. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the point of that. Cause I was like, I'm frustrated by it. Like, I'm just like, just make the game, when it comes down to it. And I'm also frustrated at the anti-woke side of the argument. I'm like, y'all are just fighting noisily. And so I'm like, what if we just not? And that's just my opinion on it. But you can share yours, because that's obviously that's one of the hot videos that I have that I'm like, people are they're like, you're dude, you're solid, or we're canceling you. I was like, all right, I don't care.
So I thought Bungie got caught up in that debacle with the Embracer Group.
Oh yeah.
Like that they bought up Volition. They bought up like 20 something studios.
They did.
Because they were trying to get investments from Saudi Arabia or whatever, and then the investors were like, yeah, now we're not really interested in video games, and now we're seeing all these studios close. And to me, that's just like, it's money. Like it's always, like you were saying with the plot armor, the game's doing well, the game's making money, great.
Everything's good.
Beat your employees. We don't care.
We don't care. Because nobody cares about crunch unless the game is bad. If the game comes out and it's bad, it's like, those poor developers, they were crunching. But it's the game's incredible. Oh man, we worked really hard. Shut up. We're good.
Get back in the office.
Get back in the game. I want more. Chain them to the desks, please.
No, I see what you're saying there. But anytime the wokeness, whether it's in games or Hollywood, I think that as long as the thing still makes money, whatever decision they made, they're going to think it was a great idea. Like, hey, let's be woke, and it did well. Yeah, we're geniuses. Hey, let's be not woke, and it did well. Yeah, just follow the money,
No, I always follow the money. Yeah.
We as the consumer really do drive what we want to see. And I think with Destiny, no one really wants to do that FOMO. no one wants to get a gun that's really cool for 2 weeks, and
Right.
then with a season change or whatever, it's like, all right,
Right.
well, now I gotta get back into Gambit, or I gotta go do all these
Well,
raids again.
And they released a letter this year where I was kind of hopeful because he's like, we're going to have a PvP strike team. We're going to be investing in this. And it's like, why haven't you been doing that already? We've been talking about that. And that also leads into their investments into Marathon, which is an upcoming PvP game by them, which I'm really interested in checking out.
Oh,
Yeah.
like the original Marathon.
Yeah, but it's
Like from
it
the
sounds like
80s or
it's
whatever.
like, yeah, exactly. It sounds like it might be an extraction based like shooter, or it's their take on, like Tarkov. And again, this is all my absolute assumption. I don't truly know what the game is, and we
A
won't know until
sci-fi
we play.
Tarkov would be really cool.
Right, exactly. And so that's where, like, yeah, they could. That's where their PvP investment has been. But when it came down to Destiny, Halo is delivering maps and value and forge, so people are making their own stuff, and then they're just going ham now. And I think essentially when I look at the past like 3 Halos, 4, 5, and technically 6, we'll call Infinite, like that was those games struggled in my opinion because the leadership team at 343 was garbage, and they've replaced that leadership team, and then 1 year later Halo is firing on all cylinders. Like, it is just a great experience, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'm like, yeah, this is great. Let's go. So I think essentially where, like, the question ends up being is like, is it, it's not just follow the money, but do the leaders behind, over at Bungie, are they like, are they fully focusing on Marathon, and thus they're like, oh, Destiny's going to be fine. It can limp along. It's just going to fund this. But then all of a sudden that money dries up, and they're like, now they're kind of like, well, we haven't finished Marathon yet, and our cash cow is no longer a cash cow, which is wild to think that Sony spent $3.6 billion on them as a company, and then promising no layoffs, and then it's like, oh, by the way, layoffs. Yeah, like, yeah. See, to me, like, as somebody who's been in the business world for a while, until the money's in the account, like, I don't believe anything anybody tells me. Like, I'm a hopeful cynic. Like, I want to believe people, I want to trust people, but I'll be like, that sounds great. And then if it happens, cool. And if it doesn't, that's what I'm actually expecting to happen. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah. That turns out that wasn't a fun deal. Checks out.
I think another great thing we haven't really talked about either is, 2014, 2015 that Destiny first came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 10 years.
That really was the first AAA, mainstream looter shooter with some third person, with some magic, with some light RPG mechanics, with the different classes. Now, how many different epic sci-fi games do we have to pick from that? It's not exactly the same, but it's kind of flavors of it. Cyberpunk, you got the running around in first person and the powers.
Have you played the new expansion?
Not yet. Phantom Liberty, I'm waiting.
Yeah, I haven't stepped into Phantom Liberty, but the 2.0 update, so freaking good. And the thing I run into it, because that's a game I cannot play around the kids, so that there is a limiting factor there. And that's a game that I'm like, should I stream it? But then I'm like, but my kids also watch my videos, and I don't want them to be like, here's dad carrying a naked hooker. It's like,
cyber hooker.
Yeah, a cyber hooker. Yeah. She's got implants, but not the breast kind.
Shoots flames out of her hoo-haws. Anyway,
there's a market for it.
Now, Cyberpunk's a dangerous game. When I sit down to start a campaign, no one hears from me for like a month. It's so gripping.
Yeah. They did a good job. I'm glad that they continued to invest in it. I'm glad it's in the state that it was in. And that's just one of the things where it's like, yeah, like, it's a bummer it launched the way it did, but here we are. And I know there are people who are like, I'll never go and play that game because it launched poorly. But there is an argument to say, but they then listened, they then put in the work, and then they then made a good product. I at least consider it, but I've heard the argument because, like you said earlier in the show, like, yeah, we just want a game that works on day one, and that I pay the money, et cetera. So there is the fear that we're also then incentivizing that it's like, oh, if you mess up, it's okay.
It's okay to release 75% of a product.
Right.
Like that's not okay.
Right.
But, like you're saying, they have given it a lot of tender love and care. It's in an excellent place right now. Phantom Liberty, I think, launched way better.
Mhm.
Like, that was a tight launch, not really a lot of technical errors introduced with that. Um, and just, gaming's such a huge industry now. If you kind of let your game sit in the oven and you just got a small select group of people testing it, trying to make sure it's working, people might forget about it,
Yeah.
The people who kind of did the first year of Cyberpunk, found all the issues, helped them through it, doing the early access of Boulders Gate, like, it does make the game better, I
Mhm.
think, in the long run, but it's different now, right?
Yeah, it is
That's just kind
absolutely
of the
different.
norm.
Absolutely. We're coming up on our hour, and I'm generally going to kind of keep it locked to an hour. So the question is there any other topics that you'd like to hit before we wrap up? And do you have any shows, anything that you can plug coming up that you're excited about here?
What was your first game? I'm curious.
The first game I ever played?
What got you into the realm of video games?
Super Mario Brothers 2. I went over to my friend Chris's house. I don't remember his full name. I just remember I went over to my friend Chris's house. I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, something around that age. And he had a Nintendo, and he had Super Mario Brothers 2, and it was the coolest thing. You mean we can interact with the TV?
NES?
Yeah, on the NES. And he also had a pool and a pool cleaner. Like, these are just like, I remember this so distinctly. I can't remember his face. I couldn't tell you his last name. I can't remember his face. But I remember that I was like this. My friend, he was my friend. And we got to go to his house, and that's where I saw Super Mario Brothers 2. So that was the first game I ever saw. And then my parents got me a Nintendo with Super Mario Brothers 1 and Duck Hunt, and I played and played and played. And then obviously just became like an avid gamer, really big into video games. I got Dragon Warrior with my subscription to Nintendo Power as a part of that promotion, and that's where I fell in love with RPGs. But yeah, that was the first thing I ever saw, and it's wild to think because I love Super Mario Brothers 2, and I know that's kind of the odd duck out, but it's been exciting for me to see some of those characters and gameplay elements make their way into modern Mario, like picking up things, throwing things, and all of that. And I was like, yeah, this is great. So that's what got me started. I remember my parents also being really worried because they're like, what's he gonna do for a living? No one's gonna pay him money to play video games. And while I'm not like like the big time streamers who are making 7 figures playing video games, like, it is just still wild that I get to share my love of video games with people and make a little money, doing so, basically helping to feed the habit, essentially.
It's incredible to see what it used to be like Justin.tv. Is that what Twitch originally was?
Yeah, Justin.tv. Now it's Twitch. Now they're closing down in Korea. Twitch is leaving Korea.
Really?
Yeah, they said that their costs there are 10 times higher than anywhere else, and they just can't.
Too many mukbang videos or what?
Something, just something with the data, what it costs to have data traffic. And so I was like,
that's
all right.
Crazy. I feel like there's a lot of like Korean VTubers, aren't there?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that's just going to drive them over to YouTube, and maybe YouTube will get better at live streaming because it feels like they're like, yeah, we're going to bring in everything that all the big platforms have. And then it's like, oh, shorts. we got to do the TikTok thing.
TikTok's doing shorts.
We got to do that now. And so they've done that, and that's going to be really great. On that, what was your first game? Like, what was your introduction to video games?
Also, Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
That has been my favorite Mario game to date. And then Wonder is right now in that competition. I felt like Wonder really takes that vibe of what Super Mario World was, and it just makes it so much fun. And so I'm really looking forward to spending more time with Wonder because, like,
Wonder's fun.
Mario World, though, like the Star Road, and then you get into the secret levels, and then if you go and beat all the secret levels, it changes the color palette of the game. So all these things to discover, because me and my sister, like one year in college, we were like, during the summer, we're like, what if we just like 100% Super Mario World from the start? you
And
know,
then you
passive.
realize like how much there is to it.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite things, especially as like a first game ever. I beat it and I'm like, oh, it's done. And my older sister was like, did you find the flutes? And I was like, what?
What? Hmm?
So
There's
let's
all kinds
start
of
over.
secrets.
Let's look for stuff.
I
Yeah.
think that was Super Mario Bros. 3 though, for the with the flutes, just like from a reference perspective.
Oh, it might have been Mario Bros. 3 then.
Yeah, 3 was
Because
great.
it was like World 1-1, there was a flute that
Yeah,
could skip you
that's
like
3.
into World 3.
That's 3.
Okay.
World came after that with the SNES, but 3 was phenomenal because you got the Tanuki suit and then you could just run
Yes.
around. And then essentially to beat the game, it was like in order because like there was no saves, so like you would literally want to get the flute. Otherwise, like I can't imagine because you couldn't save it. So it was like, all right,
You got a whole
I made it to
Saturday
World
doing
5.
nothing, playing
You know,
Mario.
all right, got to get the flutes so that way I can get all the way to the end and, you know, in a reasonable amount of playtime. So, yeah. You know, what's crazy is like they had that movie that came out about that. And they actually, the game was basically announced in the movie and they showed him getting the flute. And that's how they kind of gave and kind of telegraphed that hint for this like Whiz Kid or like something like that, where it was a movie. It had Fred Savage and you know, back in the day, and it was like Nintendo's foray. He was traveling to the video game competition, and it was just like it's so interesting. I need to go watch that again.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah,
I need to watch it just for the nostalgia factor. Like, oh, now I'm an adult. That's actually one of the things, and we got to get you back because like I could talk about this all day, and you know, well, you know, as we build out this podcast because it's the inaugural episode, the thing I also
you're first.
You are well like that. I've been trying to like mentally like I've been talking with like I don't know if you know Josh, but he's got like a studio down in Richardson, and it's like okay, what does that cost? How can we get there? You know, like, and then it's like okay, well, how do I talk to my wife about like, hey, I'm gonna go drive out to Richardson, and I'll be back in 3 hours. What are you doing? I'm making a comedy podcast that doesn't make any money, you know.
Not for a while at least.
Well, and she's like, well, how are we going to make up this $1,800 gap in our budget this month? You know, like there's, you know, like, but the goal is like, I was like, yeah, I'd love to be able to sit down in person and get that on film. And so I was talking even with Comedy Arena. I was like, hey, and then when you sat down, I was like, oh, screw it. Let's just do it like this. And
there's only how many comedians in the area that are dorks.
well, I don't necessarily even need them to be dorks, but I was like, let me just sit down with my fellow comedians, and we'll talk about like whatever the hell we want to talk about. And you know, like when you said games, I was like, yes, let's talk video games. Like this is great. I would do this at the comedy club all day. Like I get up and do a whole 15 minutes about my weird obsession and passion for video games. But one of the things I've thought of and I've been working my way through just in terms of like playing as an adult, like going back and replaying some of these games that I played as a kid and evaluating it from that how I feel about it pre-playing it, like the memories and the nostalgia that I have. Like I love Final Fantasy IV, right? Back when I played it was Final Fantasy II, but how does it make me feel as an adult? And there was already a couple of moments in that game for me where when I played, there was a line that came from one of the characters, Kane, that actually like, I was like, oh man, that moved me because he became a dragoon because he wanted to honor his father. And so as a kid, all right, like I'm just kind of playing the game, but as an adult and a parent, I was like, oh wow, that has like that. I felt that like that line, just a throwaway line that it's not even a part about the story at all. But it's something that I was like, yeah. So I'm looking at trying to replay some of my, games that I grew up that were really significant for me as a kid, and seeing how I feel about them now. So that's been something that's interesting. Have you considered doing anything like that yourself, being that you're, hungry for single player games?
I think that's a great idea. I'm trying to think. I know there's a lot of games that pissed me off as a kid that were just tough. That I'm sure if I went back now and I'm like, oh, it's you jump at this time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, as far as like narratives or story beats, I feel like I'm a sucker for that stuff. So I always try to find every little note or read every little quest item. Like, oh, this character knows this character. This is their motivation.
Yeah,
I'm definitely a big sucker for all that stuff.
That's awesome, dude. So, do you got any shows or anything you wanna promote before as we wrap up?
Yeah, like I said, Dante'sComedy.com website. Send me some emails, talk shit about that website because I really need to update it, but I don't unless people are mean to me. yeah, I got a show this Saturday. If anyone's going to be in the Fort Worth area, Hyenas Comedy Club, 8 o'clock secret show.
Heck yeah, dude.
So I can't say who's on it, except the headliner's really funny, and I can say who it is, but I can't remember who it is. So
that helps.
go to my website, you'll see it.
There we go. Guys, if you're in the DFW area, Hyenas in Fort Worth. I actually was just there last week, and I'm going to be in. I don't know when this rolls. Whenever we publish this, the show might already be over. So be sure to go follow him on Instagram. Hopefully, you're posting like your reels and things like that. I got a show coming up in Garland here on the 15th. There's going to be it's a comedy competition, and then I'm going to be at Hyenas in Fort Worth on the 23rd. So
what are you doing in Garland the 15th?
So Chris has put on a show. It's so I think we got I'd have to pull up the group. Man, it's a bunch of people. We got Michael, Greasy Gordo, the Cool Kid, Teddy C, and Kalu. So it's like a bunch of guys.
Oh yeah,
Michael's
who's
hosting. Chris, what was it here? Chris Dakoko Kid. I think it's his name's Chris. Or maybe, or again, I'm just reading off usernames. I suck in Instagram. That's been my goal, like to try and get better, like on like Instagram and things like that this year. So yeah, forgive me, guys. We're working our way through. That's a big one
for me too. We got to get on. Are you on Truth Social?
No, actually, I'm not.
We got to get on Truth Social.
What's going on over there?
I don't know, but it's something that we can tell jokes on. So, right?
Okay.
Like that's what I was like. Just sign
dude,
up
we
for
both look like Republicans. I mean, what's going on?
I don't know, man. Just are people gonna laugh at my jokes? Cool. There's a platform.
Oh, dude, I get canceled on Twitter, which is fun. So yeah. I did.
Dude, if you get canceled on Truth Social, now that
would be. Oh, there we go. Goals for 2024. Let's get.
Put that on my vision board.
Yeah. It's got my map to fame and fortune. Like, all right, get canceled by the right circles in order to achieve the goal of being a well-known comic. Man,
Streisand effect circled.
Oh, dude, yeah, Streisand effect. Like, guys, please, no, don't delete this. I have to. I'm gonna issue a content strike on you. And then meanwhile, I'm just like, dude, it's such a funny game. Oh man, that's awesome and funny. Like, yeah, I got canceled, in quotes, because it's like it's more about quiet canceling me right now. So it's people just like, all right, I'm done with this ginger, I'm out of here. And it's like, for me, I just find like there's just a joy of a humor in all of that. But it was one guy, and and so actually I did the joke like at the show this last weekend. And it was, dude, like my demo is blacks and parents. Like you put an audience of parents who happen to be black, and I'm going to murder that room. Like it is so much fun because I'm so freaking white. But it's like I just lean in on that, and I don't know. I never get embarrassed by anything, so I'm just like whole hog in, and I was just killing the room. And I was like, oh, and so I ended up accidentally hosting the show because the host didn't show up. And that's good for me because it's like I need host practice. I need to work on becoming, doing that. And I've been trying to do more of it, but it's just not getting the opportunity. So I was like, yeah, I'll host. And so I jump in, do my stuff. And then between the sets, I'm bringing in bits that I didn't include in the start that I was like, yeah, I don't know how that fits into what I crafted for the show on Saturday, but it ended up working out because I was like, a couple of comedians were talking about this. And I was like, oh man, I've got a bit about that. So I get up back on stage, kind of the last thing. I was like, y'all want to hear my most racist joke? And the audience was like, yes. Yeah. And they're like, one guy's like, say it to the black people. And I go, I can't even see them. And then the room just falls over, dude. They all melt down. It was just like, it's such a great moment. And then I go into my, you always love your kids, but it's easier to like them the further they are away from you. And then it's like, just like minorities in your neighborhood. And then they just ate it up. And then I go and make fun of myself being a ginger, like gentrification. But it was such a great moment. But that was the joke that got me I got so much hate for on Twitter. They were like, oh, dude. And so I've never been called the N-word so many times in my life. But I was just like, all right, man. Like, it literally on the joke says, hey, if you're easily offended, just ignore this post. Like, just move on, and it's like, I guess that people find that attractive. They're like, what can I be angry about today? And so they just kind of zoom in, and I was like, dude, I'm making fun of myself, man, more than anything else. But it is so funny. All right,
I
so
don't
we're
know
gonna get
about
canceled
that.
on True Social next year. So that's a goal. What were you
Oh,
gonna
hell
say?
yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, I don't know about that cancel culture. Like, yeah, like a lot of people do that, but also, like, Louis C.K. is back, baby. Like,
Well, it also
you know what
helped.
I mean?
It all he Louis C.K. is such an interesting case study for lack of the fact that he had victims, and so it's like there are people who like he, like yeah, that he violated like trust and just like that level. The fact is though, there is a weird separation, right? Because like he didn't physically assault anybody. It doesn't mean what he did was right by any stretch of the imagination, but in terms of degrees, I can see how
Well,
we can forgive that much easier than like Bill
not to get
Cosby.
too heavy and detailed into it. I guess I just mean more like, even if you cancel someone, there's still 8 billion people on the planet. There's going to be a market of people
Well,
that always enjoy what that person's
cancel
putting out.
culture, though, in and of itself, has been the biggest marketing campaign. I don't know if you follow, I think Ryan Long on YouTube, but he has a whole bit like, all right, how can I got to make fun of the LGBTs because how else am I going to get press? It's like, it's like, yeah,
Yep.
there's a part of that, like, having that negative does draw a lot of attention. And that really is the goal of social media, is how do you get attention? And I hope that it's just, you're not trying to be an asshole for the sake of being an asshole just for that attention. But the cancel culture, it doesn't work. And so what the shift is, like, if you think about it as almost as a virus, it's not a virus, but let's talk about it in terms of how things, a contagion that changes, right? So all of a sudden it's like cancel culture is a tool that we're going to use. And what it did was it caught some bad guys, some actual like real bad guys got caught. And then it migrated and moved. Yeah, Weinstein.
I mean, yeah, but like, I feel like we cuffed like 5 dudes, and there's like
Right.
50,000.
Well, yeah. Well, and the thing is that what actually, and this is what I was studying this as well, because I'm a nerd, and so I'm very like always just kind of reading and consuming. But one of the studies that have come out recently, just kind of analyzing what was the real value of Me Too, what was the real value of this movement, is that yeah, we got some bad guys, and then it shifted into kind of just, okay, well now you're just rude, or so then we started attacking all these things. What it's done is it's taken guys out of asking like girls and to go out on dates. Like it's actually removed guys and made them more reserved and fearful of that engagement. It's made women more longing because now they're not being approached at all, and they're like, I want to talk to a dude, and rapists are still out there raping people. Like that didn't stop them at all. They're still out there just going like, dude, I was already a horrible person. This didn't bring me into the fold, but it just made people who aren't horrible people afraid, and it's causing, and that's where it's like the loneliness epidemic that's running through, especially with men. Like it's actually a real impact there, and so it's like I was listening to, it was a bunch of it was women actually kind of talking about that. They're like, this needs to change, and so cancel culture though evolved from kind of these targeted campaigns to realizing like, well, especially if you target somebody that isn't deserving, that's just promoting them. So it goes more into a quiet canceling, meaning we're not gonna tell you you're canceled. You're gonna feel it, and you'll see all your numbers.
You're gonna sell tickets.
Yeah, you're not gonna sell tickets, right?
You're not gonna give views or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the biggest, like the thing I see with it is like, it's like, yeah, it's kind of a mutually assured destruction kind of setup, because now you're seeing it on the other side with Disney and with all like the different companies. Like it's like, wait, why am I going to go spend money on the latest Marvel movie? I'm just like, nah, I'll wait, and then now it's like they're in the whole bad, and so it's like it goes both ways. It's like I think that's why just companies just stay out of it. You're companies, you're not human beings, like you're about making profit, like, and that's at the end of the day, we know that's going to be all follow the money. And so if you forget that aspect, the world will remind you. And that's a strength. That's a value we have as consumers, is to choosing what we want to consume and what we don't want to consume.
I thought that new Marvel movie was pretty sexist.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it.
The main plot point that drives it forward is 3 women can't work together. Really? Okay. Like, no wonder it did poorly. Come on, guys. It's 2023.
Guys, women can work together. Just give them a shot.
Multitask. It's 2 of them, not 3. 3, it does get a little catty.
Oh, And then you throw Nick Fury in there, and so they're gonna all be fighting over
Hasn't
his
he been
attention.
dead, or is he alive? I thought he was dead for like 7
Oh, and
movies now.
who knows? I mean, he was a scroll for a little bit, I guess. Who knows?
Yeah, I fell off in Phase 1 or after Infinity
Yeah,
War.
Phase 4. Yeah, in Phase 4. I thought I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in Retool, but more than anything else, I'm excited about James Gunn's, and there's another guy, so I don't want to. Sorry, I don't remember his name, but Gunn leading the DCU, which he's rebooting the whole thing with Superman in 2025.
How can we be done with Superman and Batman? DC
dude.
has more
They
characters to
do,
explore.
and he's bringing in the Authority, and he's bringing in Booster Gold. But the thing is that he's like, how do you take tentpole characters and then raise up your other lineup? Booster Gold is such, like, I can't wait to see Booster Gold, and personally hoping that Nathan Fillion is Booster Gold, because he would be perfect. He would be perfect for that role, and they're friends. So the thing, though, with DC versus the Marvel, like DC, the DCEU, the Snyderverse or whatever, then like that has failed. Like it had a couple of good shining moments, but they got greedy and they rushed it. So they never really focusing on it. Now MCU right now is struggling with, we're working on the overall bigger plot and not on the characters. But then you have gems like Guardians, and Guardians of the 3 this year was incredible. Like, it's so weird because also Loki season 2 just wrapped. Incredible.
The shows have been amazing. Guardians was the only movie I heard was great.
Yeah, well, because I think the Loki and Guardians take a character-driven approach, meaning
WandaVision was the other one.
I loved WandaVision, but then it was marred by the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie, because they were building both in parallel, so they weren't able to write the movie knowing what happened in WandaVision. So there's a real disconnect in the character, we resolved some of this grief, but now the grief is here, and so it's like it didn't feel like this excellent evolution of that. But WandaVision was great, but then you have you've had these struggles. And so with the DCU, if they have a character-driven approach, and James Gunn says the one rule that they're going to go slow, their one rule for this universe is they're going to finish the scripts. So over in the MCU, like, they haven't finished the third act by the time they're already working on the movie and filming. And so it ends up being why sometimes you feel like that's wrapped up, where in Guardians of the Galaxy, like 3 is a really good example, is like, that movie was great, start to finish. It's great on its own. It's great in the greater scheme of the universe. And I really hope that he can bring that to the DCU, because like with Authority, Swamp Thing, Booster Gold, like, there are some really great characters that, and we've seen his work with the Suicide Squad over in the DC side. Excellent. He knocked that out of the park. And then, so I'm hoping that with his leadership, that they can really truly build this thing. And he's doing it across movies and animation, and he said also video games, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. Because, like, I remember when we were growing up, there was all those video game movie adaptations, which they had to be rushed out.
Well, there was a decent one.
There was once in a while a decent one, but they felt like they had to rush those games out to match with the movie's release. My whole thing, I kept saying, was like, just have this game come out 2 years after the movie. People are going to really enjoy it, and you'll get you'll get that uptick back to the movies. But they didn't listen to me.
Well, it's
random online kid that's like, hey guys.
If it's the movie, the game, like, you're just playing the movie, that doesn't have to be that fancy. Yeah. If you're gonna take some time, like, make it a continuation of the movie, or a prequel, maybe, something more in depth.
Now, before we wrap up, one thought that I wanted to share is that, like, as I look at it, because this is something you mentioned Sony, and you being a big Sony fan, like, I want to finish Spider-Man 1 and 2, because they are building that as a super cool universe. I know that they've already kind of teased Daredevil. Wolverine is set in that same universe that the game is set in. And so I love Insomniac and Wolverine. Like, when we talk about the movie-based games, like, I played all the Wolverine games back in the day, and they were okay. But I would love to see, I'm really hoping that what they've done with Spider-Man, they can deliver with the Wolverine, because that will be amazing.
So the Origins game, X-Men Origins Wolverine, horrible movie. The game,
it was good.
Really fun, actually.
Yeah, like, it was a lot of fun.
Really fun.
Yeah,
and that's what has me most excited for. There is the new Wolverine game coming out, like, in 2 years or a year or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're gonna knock it out of the park. What they did with Marvel's Spider-Man, I think they really a lot of love and attention to detail to a predefined space. So I think if they can do that with Wolverine, maybe have a couple of maps or a couple of zones you can go to, but we don't need Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom scale to enjoy an open world setting, you know?
Exactly.
Like half the fun is like, oh shit, I've been to New York. I know that building, right?
Yeah. It has that real world, that approach. That's also something the MCU does over DC, because we can't go visit Metropolis or Gotham. But New York is a real city, and that has that connection, which is really cool. Anyway, guys, be sure to go and check out Dante over on Instagram. Probably, are you on True Social?
No, I need to sign up for like all that dumb stuff. Dante'sComedy.com.
Dante'sComedy.com. That's where you need to go follow him, and be sure to check him out. He's phenomenal on the mic, and I'm very much excited to hear about how it goes on the 8th, and we'll get you back on to talk more video games and comedy, guys. All right, this has been Stand Up and Press Start. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Hopefully you enjoyed. Like, sub, share, comment below. We got more comics lined up for you guys here in the near future, and hopefully you enjoyed. But until then, take care.